I know there are other speakers. Let me tell you a quick word, it may be useful, about the Fair Work Act. You know that Morrison's strategy has been to delegate all the dirty work for this phony pandemic to the states. And he's done that because by doing that he avoids complications that might arise from a certain document called the Commonwealth Constitution. He's essentially kicked it into touch by gathering all these creepy premiers. He gets the spinster premiers from Queensland and New South Wales, fresh from passing their abortion to birth laws, before they start to take the lives of children with their compulsory vaccines. He gets them, he gets Marshall, he gets all the health officers together, he throws money at them, and he says, you go and do that work because then we won't be vulnerable to constitutional challenges. And he's trying to do the same, offload it to corporations in respect of employees. You see, he's doing that. But his problem is, the problem for this man is that there's something called the Fair Work Act, and it's got teeth. And they might try and persuade you that the unfair dismissal provisions and the unlawful termination provisions aren't relevant in this situation. That's a total lie. If you have a medical exemption, the provisions in relation to medical exemptions with the aged care workers will be very similar in the next series of directions. And so you've got to try and take use of them if you can. You've got to play them for all they're worth. If it so happens that you're unsuccessful because they've changed the regulations in the meantime, well, that will only radicalise more of your workmates. Yep. Either way, there's no downside to being as strong as possible in exerting your rights in the Fair Work Commission.
Yep.
I should say a word about other strategies, and I'm nearing the end now. Look, just before I leave the Commonwealth, and this is said with due respect to all of the people that are trying to do their bit in resisting this tyranny, but you might hear from time to time advice about why not utilise the Biosecurity Act. The Biosecurity Act was brought in 2015. It's a Commonwealth Act of Parliament, and I think during the Abbott government, when Morrison was given his instructions from whoever it is that gives him his instructions to start carrying out the measures that all of the other countries around the world started carrying out in tandem, he would have turned to the Biosecurity Act and he would have said, oh, bugger me, this act's got teeth. There's some really serious protections to people in respect of their privacy of their information and in respect of all the measures that I plan to take through the states. And so he's kicked the Biosecurity Act into touch as well. The Biosecurity Act will only come into play when the Health Minister, Mr. Hunt I said, when Mr. Hunt makes directions under that. He's only made two that matter. The reason we can't leave the country is because he's made a direction under the Biosecurity Act about that, and it's also the reason we're subject to quarantine when we come back in. Other than that, he's not made any meaningful directions. So you hear people talk about what's happening in the States is inconsistent with Commonwealth law. There has to be an operational inconsistency. Morrison and Hunt have to issue their own declarations under this Act before it's inconsistent with the state legislation. Now, the people who tell you all about the Biosecurity Act, I'm sure they're well-intentioned, they're trying to lift your spirits, but we've got to be smart. We've got to be courageous, and we've got to be smart, and we've got to take advantage of the remedies that are available. Now, I'm going to wind up now. Getting back to Andrew's position, what I wanted to say to you, there are two aspects to our resistance, and we've got to resist. What I'm preaching today, let me be frank about it, carrying the risk of incitement, I'm preaching insurrection. I'm preaching revolt. I'm preaching rebellion. Peaceful. Now, I'm going to suggest all of the rallies, everything that's done happens in a very fair consultative process. My suggestion is going to be that the next rally is outside one of the institutions that's right at the heart of the machinery that's carrying out this tyranny. Why don't we meet at the entertainment centre, which also happens to be the rooms for Channel 7. A crowd this size and more, why don't we meet there and insist on going in? This has happened in Slovenia. So Slovenia were sick with their state broadcaster. They gathered, they went in whilst the lies are being peddled, whilst Koshi's sitting at his desk with spike proteins behind him talking about PCR test results and fraudulently claiming that a PCR test represents an infection, let alone a case. While they're doing, let's get into the studios. That's the sort of action I'm talking about.
Yep.
It may be, given the obstacles that we're facing, it may be that it's going to take generations to wind back all of the degradation of our civilization that's made us vulnerable, to falling for what they've done to us. That'll take time, but in the meantime we can be guerrillas, we can be partisans, we can harass them, we can harry them, we can take up their time and their resources. That's why I say to you, especially with respect to any expiation notices you get for not submitting to a PCR test, or any expiation notices you get in relation to some other measures they take under the direction, that you don't pay the expiation fee. I know it's tempting. They've set that up. They've set it up so that you'll pay the $1,000 rather than take the risk of 2 years imprisonment or $10,000. Don't pay it. Get them to issue the summons. There are good defences available. There are good defences available to this. The same with masks. If you get an expiation notice, that arises from a part of the declaration which gives the police commissioner a power to order rules that prevent the transmission of infection. You know as well as I do, masks don't do that. I'm going to have to wind up. There are many other people who need to speak. Can I just say to you that, in conclusion, that my whole attitude changed to this pandemic and my response to it when I sat down and I said to myself, what would it be like if I woke up every day and undertook to myself never to be afraid? And let me tell you, it's made all the difference. I invite you to do it.
Thank you, Stuart. We do have a number of speakers today, and I hate to hurry people up, and Stuart has some powerful information to share, and he is certainly working tirelessly to support people who I've also been fortunate to communicate with as well. And it is very true that these people who actually take just that step to actually stand in their truth and stand up for themselves are very empowered. Unemployed, but very empowered. So now we have Simon Forrest. Simon's spoken before. Simon's done a major research paper on all things, all aspects of this pandemic. Can't even find a word. Simon has just updated his research. He's going to give us a fairly broad, I think, update on all things global in relation to this virus.
Oh, hello.
Thanks, Kath. As Stuart said, look, thanks all for coming. It is an honour and a privilege to speak. I'll try and be pretty quick. I think we're behind schedule already. I just want to go through some random points and also finish on some really positive news and also a bit of information which will be handy for a lot of you that are in compromised sort of situations at work. So just randomly, I just want to start off. I had a phone conversation with a friend of mine in Canada a couple of days ago. She's a teacher over there. Some really disturbing news. She said that even though their school aren't going down the mandatory vaccination path yet, they're actually requiring teachers who don't have the jab, they need to be tested once every 2 days, and get this, they have to undergo a vaccination education program or a brainwashing program. So that's, yeah, it's pretty disturbing. It is. Just another random thing, I was in Tasmania 3 or 4 weeks ago, flew to Hobart and back, didn't wear a mask. I had a mask exemption form and a stat deck. I got pulled over 4 times twice in Hobart, twice in Adelaide, got questioned. Mind you, the police were pretty good. I just sat there and thought, wow, we're living in an age where I've had 4 more interactions with police officers than I have in my entire life for wearing an ineffective, unhealthy, psychological, damaging and environmentally unfriendly face nappy. What about all the campaigning at the moment? You got celebrities pulling up their arms, and you got I think it's 400 artists formed together for the vaccination. Guy Sebastian got in a bit of trouble for questioning that. Pretty sad. You've got like the NAB Bank has now temporarily changed their name to JAB. The TAB agency, the betting agency, they've also done the same thing. For those of you who are probably over the age of 40, do you remember the Meadow Lee ad? You ought to be congratulated. Yeah, well they've revamped that. Now it's you ought to be vaccinated. And there was one more thing. Oh, that's right. I was flicking on the radio the other day. Triple M had Double Shot Tuesday for their playlist. So some of the promotional stuff's getting interesting. Obviously, all the media are ramping up the coercion and that. The other thing is too, which is the narrative's getting a bit interesting. Like the Fringe, the directors or the organisers of the Fringe and the arts are saying they may introduce mandatory vaccinations for people going to their events. The Bird in Hand Winery, I saw the Dick in Hand sign over there. I love it. Put your hand up if you've emailed them. Nice. I'll be honest, I haven't done it yet. I was going to. Actually, Trudy did a great email from the Adelaide Freedom Rally. It was sensational. But what I'm tempted to say to them is, if you're going to sort of mandate, in terms of discriminating on the false sort of premise that the vaccines somehow stop transmission or infection and transmission, then you and also on the false premise that they supposedly sort of reduce symptoms and therefore may reduce contagiousness. Well, you might as well get people at the door and test them for their vitamin D levels, it's just ridiculous. Or even if they're obese. Or if they're of colour, because people of colour have a low vitamin D levels. Are you going to, ask them about how good their lifestyle is? It's just absurd where it's all sort of going. Just while I'm talking about or questioning vaccine efficiency and effectiveness, and there is more in my paper that Kathy mentioned, but just a couple of things that you can arm yourself with. A lot of, maybe you've got pro-vax friends that say, well, the vaccines are 95% effective and there's all the hospitals are filled with unvaccinated. I'll just challenge that for a quick bit. So with the 95% stuff, now a guy called Peter Doshi from the British Medical Journal did a really good article on this. I won't go too much into it, but he basically said the 95% is based on, there was 6 people that were actually tested positive and 170 odd unvaccinated tested positive, but they actually took out a number, I think 3,500 participants from that study, and if you actually included them, I think there was about 1,800 unvaccinated, 1,600 vaccinated. It would have dropped the 95% down to 19%, and they also took out 370 for unknown reasons or some protocol reasons. So you wouldn't be surprised if those numbers are actually zero. I'll wind up, that's right. So you can question that. The other thing too, how the media is saying that the hospitals are filled with unvaccinated people. Well, I had an interview with Dr. Carrie Madej in the States recently, and guess what? Guess what they're doing over there? So she's had hundreds of hospital workers confirm that when the vaccinated people are hospitalised with COVID, in the majority of cases, they are actually writing their vaccination status as unknown to skew the numbers. The unvaccinated, they will mark unvaccinated, but the vaccinated, they'll go unknown. So this is how they skew the numbers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing the same thing in Australia. I'm not sure how many people actually heard that interview with Stu Peters and that anonymous nurse. And yeah, she was basically saying the same thing. The hospitals are full of vaccinated, and she's actually saying it's the vaccine injuries that's why they're there. So there's a few things you can challenge people. Even Fauci came out and said the amount of viral load for the so-called Delta variant is the same in unvaccinated versus vaccinated. So this is coming straight from his mouth. Okay, I'll just wind up now. I just want to finish on some good news, right? So we got the UK has pulled back the vaccine passport.
Yeah.
Denmark has done a similar thing. I believe in Florida they're actually going to be placing hefty fines on businesses that actually refuse people because of their vaccination status. In South Australia, this is not confidential now, is it? The police commissioner is not going to mandate vaccinations for the police force, despite some rumours contrary. So,
Yeah.
unless you're working in a Medi hotel, I think. And just finally, and this is where there's some important information. Actually, there is one more thing. Have you seen that Facebook page, Businesses Unite Australia? I think it's about 165,000 members. So it's so encouraging to see businesses out there, regardless of where legislation is going with this. It's so encouraging to see all these businesses saying we will not discriminate based on your vaccination choice.
Yeah.
And that's going to be really important in the future, because we will need to develop communities outside this vaccination bubble. We need to find hairdressers that cut our hair. We need to find healthcare providers that will help us regardless of our vaccination status. So this is really important. And finally, in terms of good news, there's a lot of class actions and lawsuits happening at the moment. I spoke to, and I know Stuart mentioned a few things about that as well. I spoke to Serene Tepahar this morning from Advocate Me and People for Safe Vaccines. So she wanted me to sort of, I'll pass on this message. Basically, if you're in a situation where you're coerced or being forced into vaccinations at your workplace, basically she's teamed up with a group called HRA, which is Human Rights Advocates, and they have 30 people, I think they're called 30 advocates that can help you. So you can actually get onto the email address. I think it's humanrightsadvocates.com.au. There are 30 available advocates that will point you in the right direction. There's templates, they can pass you on to lawyers and agents. So there is an option for you. I know Maria from Informed Choice Network, she's not here today. That's another option for you guys as well. And obviously Stuart's made some good points as well. So there are some people out there to help you guys in your workplace. I think that's pretty much about it in terms of the behind schedule. So I'll just wrap it up there. So yeah, look, thanks again for all coming. Stick together, just stay true to yourself. Yeah, we'll get through this. There will be an end point. Don't know when, don't know how it's going to happen, but I've got no doubt we'll be okay, and we'll be on the right side of history, eh?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Simon. And I've been watching them manipulate the statistics and the figures for decades, and it's just common practice not to record the vaccination status of somebody who's come down with a disease and that has been vaccinated, because obviously that's counter to the agenda. Now, next we have, and I'm doing my best to get through the speakers. There are so many people with good things to say. I have told the police that we'll be endeavouring to do our march at 1:30, and I suspect we may be a little bit delayed on that, and I apologise. But you do get to hear this important information from these brilliant people. So the next speaker, it's not you, Stephen, you're gorgeous, but it's not you. I sound like, am I on a reality TV show? Usher or something. I should mutter in hushed tones, the ones that didn't make the cut. This is Craig. Now, Craig is a teacher, and he's also a member of the Independent Education Union. So he's just going to have a word about teaching. Teachers, Nando.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about that. It's very hard to come after two so funny and talented, knowledgeable people, but I do have a joke for you as a teacher. And then there's two rats were going to get the vaccine, and the first rat said, "Are you going to have it yet?" And he said, "No, I'm going to wait for the human trials to finish." Yes. It's a tough crowd. My students laugh at that. Today's Freedom Rally is all about the fundamental right to choose and the freedom to choose what goes into our body. Yep. Without a carrot and stick coercion. It's the carrot and stick. And if you read, everyone knows the the Nuremberg Code, the carrot and stick is universally banned. Thank you, mate. My name is Craig, and I'm speaking to give hope and a voice to everyone in the education sector. As the rapper Fox just sang to us before, it's for the kids, for the next generation that we're here. My two main concerns are an attempt to stop the divide in our community, to keep the peace and keep the unity in our community, and also to see what's going on interstate and overseas, and to stop any mandated vaccine passports that may come into education and every other sector in order to work. We've discussed that. But COVID has given us the opportunity to appreciate just how important schools are, and how important the families they are, and how important the care, the communication, the friendships that students have. We only have to look interstate to that. We've been very lucky in South Australia, and that's why I'm here today, because if we don't take action today, look interstate, it's coming. We know it's coming unless we stand up to it. Clap, clap, clap. It's amazing to me just how usually organised, knowledgeable and highly opinionated teachers can be so silent on these issues. It's just crazy, I can't believe it. Got to meet Andrew afterwards about this too. About masks, about vaccines and about their job security. Maybe it's because they all get paid regardless of what's going on. Maybe they've got that type of job where they don't lose their job because of a lockdown. But after today, this is about to change. I'm currently teaching in both sectors. I'm in the department and I'm also in the private sector. I'm actually teaching in a Christian school. I'm also a member of the rep in the union. And when we had a union meeting only 2 weeks ago, the union said to us, we won't represent you if you just don't want to take it. We'll only represent you if you have, that's exactly right. So, exactly. So it's an obvious choice that I have now as a member of a union, whether I keep paying my fees. As so many of you will know, the doctors, even if you do have a health issue, the doctors will not sign off on your health issue for your exemption. Once again, the carrot and the stick. We all have anecdotes of people we know who know people where they just won't sign off. The silent majority that Scott Morrison mentioned is why we are all here today. There's in more humour that we heard today. We all know the Castle, the movie Castle, yes? And we all know Daryl Kerrigan. I think there's a lot of Daryl Kerrigan in all of us. The little guy who has no power. Now luckily we've got Stuart here, who's the lawyer who comes in at the end of the movie, who's going to save the day. There are a lot of other lawyers, like the other lawyer at the photocopy machine, who are useless and who are worried about their jobs. But we have to get on board, we have to support each other in this, and we have to unify and find people like the last two speakers who have that skill set and have that knowledge so we can work together. Mac from the Australian Education United New South Wales represents, you might know him on social live streaming, 6,000 educational sector members. He talks about school bullies, and that school bullies are bad and should be stopped. The school bully, the harassment protocol usually goes like this: stop it, I don't like it. This is where we are now, stop it, I don't like it. The part after that is walk away. The part after that is go and tell somebody to get help. I was speaking to a really highly regarded principal, and she said, I'm not going to take the vaccine. If they make me take it, I'll just have to retire. No, that's the next part with a bully. The first part with a bully is stop it, I don't like it. She should be stopping there and supporting us. But if she does go, what about all the other majority of people who can't stop, who can't retire, can't take their superannuation? So we're at the point where we need to send a signal that we don't want the vax passport. We are lucky. The guys on the social media interstate, they were saying, if only we had have done this march back in September, they said, we're in Sydney, we've got 4 million people. If only we had 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 at the march, instead of they had only this many people in the whole of Sydney back in September. They said if only we had been more serious then, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in now. So that's why we need to make the most of this. What we're doing today, we're not just doing it for the teachers and the educators, we're also doing it for the police, we're doing it for the fire brigade, we're doing it all for all those who work in childcare, we're doing it for, in fact, everybody. And clap, clap. Okay. So what do we have to do? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to respect everyone who's taken the vaccine. We have to be unified. We can't give anyone any excuse to call us wacko anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists. This is all about freedom to make the choice. We have to, my family, they want to get it, that's fine. Told them not to, they want to get it, that's their choice, but we have to respect those if we expect to be respected ourselves. That's the most important thing. So that's where it starts. If we can do that, then we'll get respect on the way. The next thing, as all the other speakers have said, we have to actually use facts and truth. This is what we lack. If we can stick to the facts, stick to the promises in our constitution and hold that up, then we have something to stand on. There can be no emotion, there can be no feelings. It has to be factual, it has to be legislated, and then we have real teeth. Because it's, as Goebbels said, they said, how did you get away with what you did in the Second World War? He said, that was easy. It wasn't about the Nazi policy, it was about the fear. We just made them scared. We can see what's happening. We can keep the facts and keep the truth and get it out there amongst our friends, starting small, getting bigger and bigger and bigger within our, whatever our skill sets are. If we're good at social media, do it. If we're good at just talking to people, do it. You know, if we're great with legal or anything medical, help wherever we can. We have to do what our skill sets are. Thank you very much. It's been an honour. Thank you.
And an absolute joy, I just want to add.